Welcome back to Upper Michigan Today. We are talking about social media this morning and really just how we can protect ourselves if we're using some of these platforms. We have Dr. Lucy Johnson with us from Northern Michigan University, and we've kind of set the scene for, the different things that can happen online. And now we're going to dive into this a little bit more, and starting off talking about how it all works, understanding it, not just going on these platforms because, oh, it's a great place to connect, but knowing what is actually happening when you go on. And that's something you call digital literacy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you Google digital literacy, you'll see a lot of definitions talking simply about just how to use something. So digital literacy is knowing how to operate Photoshop. It's knowing how to navigate social media platforms, right? It's for an intended purpose, understanding that. My argument, and this kind of niche in the field of social media as a scholarly avenue for research, is arguing that we also need to understand its inner workings. So we need to be looking under the hood of digital technology to understand what's happening kind of passively without our knowledge. So that's kind of what my research looks at, and this is a really great avenue in terms of thinking about hacking and the ways in which our information can be vulnerable. That is absolutely a part of digital literacy that needs to be more investigated, more talked about, and just something that we kind of have as a knowledge when we're using these platforms.
So are there any things that we should know about as Facebook users, as social media users, that can just help us with our digital literacy that everyday users like Elizabeth and I might not know about?
Absolutely. So my research talks about having an active digital identity and then a passive one, so a visible and invisible. The active one is the one that we're all knowing how to do. This is creating a social media profile. It's making active choices online, creating that digital footprint, which is then our invisible digital identity, which is aggregated data, where there's assumptions made about us from a psychological standpoint, which impacts our consumer behavior. And then also just leaving a trace in terms of understanding where we've been, why we're going, and as a result, certain assumptions are made about us, which impacts our offline identity as well. So my argument as part of this digital literacy that we're cultivating, it's understanding some of this terminology that is out there pertaining to hackers and the way that they're obtaining your information. So some of that knowledge is understanding words like phishing.
Let's put this information up on the screen too, because this is a great, okay, here we go. Go ahead.
Okay. So different ways that hackers can obtain your information is from things like phishing. This is when different links are sent to us that may take us towards information that contains a data breach or gives hackers access to our information. Different things like keylogging. This is when a software is installed on your device so that hackers track your keystrokes, and as a result of that, they're able to obtain your passwords through assumptions of common patterns. This is also done through geothermal technology too. So when you go to places like Target and you're putting in your PIN for your debit card, they can actually put a geothermal tracking device to look to see where the heat has been generated based on the numbers you clicked. So they can guess your debit card PIN. So that's an offline example, but virtually the same thing as the keystroke logger. There's something called password spraying, which is where hackers will put in a bunch of information and see what sticks when they're trying to guess your password. And then also something called brute forcing, which is them trying all the possible combinations, usually this is numerical, to try and generate a successful lead for your password.
So I'm looking at this information, so many of these things I've never heard of, which I'm probably not alone in that, but it seems like hackers are getting smarter, and so we need to get smarter.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And I want to preface too, not all hackers are bad. So there are the hackers that are done usually in isolated incidents where it's one person trying to impersonate you on social media and trying to obtain information through your network or financial gain. But there are hackers out there that are going to social media sites themselves and are saying, hey, your information's not encrypted, or your user information isn't safe. Snapchat is notorious for this. They will have hackers contacting them all the time to let them know, you guys need to do a security update, your information's not safe. They've actually been warned in the past, and in 2014, hackers exposed their information for users to let them know, like, hey, we warned you, this is what could happen. They leaked, I think it was 20,000 users' information, and sensitive content was put out there on the web. There was actually arrests that were made because there was photos of minors that were sent between users that were indecent. So there are hackers out there working to make the internet a safer place. Sometimes it gets a little gray in terms of the methods that they use, but yeah, hackers can be kind of a neutral area.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, if those methods can be used for good, they can be used for bad too.
That's so
And
true.
it seems like with the scams too, it's not just, you don't just have to be on social media to fall victim to a scam. Basically, if you exist, it can happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, we want to go through some tips on how we can better secure our social media so that maybe some of those, what were some of those words? I already forgot.
Phishing, keylogging, brute force.
We got a lot to pay attention to. I've been living in a passive state for a minute. All right. We'll be right back.